To allow for Annie to be heard clearly, we have placed all attendees on mute. Please use the window on the right-hand side of your screen throughout the webinar to ask any questions. These will be used for our question and answer period at the end of the presentation. This session is being recorded. Assuming no technical difficulties, you will receive a link to the archive within 48 hours, as well as a link to the certificate of participation. Finally, at the end of today's presentation, you will receive a short survey. By completing this survey, you assist us in providing future complimentary webinars. A little bit about SDE. At SDE, we believe educators have the most important job in the world. That's why it's our mission to empower pre-K through 12 educators across the country with sustained professional development solutions that are not only research-based and rigorous, but also practical, innovative, and fun. Our goal is to help you create environments that prepare your students for the evolving demands of the 21st century. Together, we can create extraordinary classrooms. We are pleased to have Anni Stipek joining us for today's webinar. Anni is an inspiring and knowledgeable classroom teacher with over 20 years experience educating and motivating students in kindergarten through 8th grade. She's passionate about equipping K-2 students with early numeracy skills, has traveled to Singapore to experience Singapore math firsthand, and draws a solid background in math curriculum design and implementation. Her book, Word Problems for Model Drawing Practice, Level 6, is widely used by teachers across the country. She has also developed several online courses on Singapore math techniques. Welcome, Anni, and I will turn the presentation over to you at this point.
Thank you so much. Are we good to go?
We are set.
Okay. Well, welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're all enjoying the beginnings of your year. And I'm in the Pacific Northwest, so I can imagine that we've got people from all over the United States. So thank you so much for joining us. I want to give you a little tease, a little introduction to a new intervention seminar run that I'm doing this year for staff development. We're going anywhere from the West Coast to the East Coast for this, and bopping into the state of Hawaii as well at the end of the year. So we're so excited. We have done an intervention seminar run before, and this is a little bit different. I wanted to introduce you to a new tool that you will receive when you come to the training. I want to introduce you to the intervention framework that we have learned from Dr. Doug Edge, and just a few student examples this day, and then wrap up with some questions. So the first thing I want to do is introduce you to a phenomenal new tool that we have coupled with a company, MathLine, and they have developed this tool to help students to understand mathematics conceptually. And you look at it and you can notice that it's very similar to a Rec and Rec, but there are some differences as well. So I'm going to give you just a minute to jot down how it's different from the Rec and Rec. What's added to it that will make this just a knockout tool for students, especially in the intervention realm. So if you take a look at this little flyer that I have, I would have loved to have been able to showcase it for you, but wasn't able to get that all hooked up. So at least I have a picture for you. So you see one side is very similar as the Rec and Rec. There's no numbers on it. And then on the other side, you see that there are numbers on it. So we match it with just not only the beginnings of students understanding part whole thinking without the numeral, but then the other side adds to it the numeral. And then also you see there's a little whiteboard on the top of it down at the bottom of your screen. So every participant is going to get one of these as they come to the seminar run. And then also we'll be using it all day long, whether we're working with early numeracy with single digit by single digit, counting, early subitizing, early number recognition, comparison, all the way to adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And I myself will be bringing tools that are go up into the hundred and give you the opportunity to know where you can claim these tools. But every participant will get a math, Rec and Rec math line. So I wanted to introduce that to you. Now I'm going to step aside for just a minute and just introduce you to this math framework. Again, this was created by Dr. Doug Edge and Robert Ashlock. Robert Ashlock was a professor at Covenant College in Lookout Mountain, Tennessee. Dr. Edge studied under him, got his PhD and his work there, and then he went to Singapore, and he has done a lot of work. He's retired now, lives up in Vancouver, British Columbia, and has done a lot of work for us that we can appreciate to do with intervention, how students learn, how we can help that child who has that missing stair in the staircase. And they put together this framework that we stick with. Task analysis, error analysis, and intervention. And that might not mean a lot to you as of yet, but as we look at a few examples of students' work, you're going to have a very good indication of how you can take this and work not only with your intervention students in mathematics, but you could use it in any content area, to be honest. So let's take a look at what this means exactly. Diagnosing, taking a look at the student's work, doing a task analysis. What is the student asked to do? What are the skills that are missing? How can we identify those missing skills? From there, then, remediation. Now, you and I both know that remediation needs to look different than we usually teach the child. These students are coming to us with gaps, and they have been taught the procedure somehow before, or the algorithm somehow before, or a method somehow before, and it has not solidified. We have to ask ourselves why, and what can we bring to the table that's a little bit different. And then from their practice. You and I both know that it's not by sitting down and doing a worksheet that is going to solidify a child's understanding once they get a method that works. It's by playing games. It's by writing about it. It's by reteaching it themselves. It's by doing an activity to help solidify the new skill set so they can generalize it and apply it. So I just want to introduce this to you, and of course, an application. How can we allow the child practice and opportunity to apply the new method that they have worked out? So that's the gist of today. Again, the goal of this training, the intervention training, is to really help to solidify the diagnostic piece, the task analysis. And that's basically either pre-assessing numerous different ways, maybe having just a conversation with the child, a diagnostic interview, or asking them to do a few problems, and you're watching and observing how they're doing it. Identifying the prior missing knowledge. This is a huge piece to the puzzle with helping students bridge the gap from a misunderstanding to success. And a lot of it has to do with that decompose, compose. If you take a look at Common Core standards, or if you're not a Common Core standard state, you look at your own state standards and you will see a commonality. One of my friends calls it the golden thread through Common Core standards. You look at the beginning of decomposing simple single-digit numbers, 8. 8 is 80, 71, 62, and so on. And then all the way up to using it in multiplication and division, so decomposing and then also composing. And when you come to the intervention training, you will get a snapshot. You'll get this in your resource book, a list of skill sets all the way from kindergarten up to through the operations. And then we can be able to take a look at, my child's struggling with multiplication. Look at all the pre-skills underneath the belt. Which one do we need to go to identify that? So that's the diagnosis piece. Remediation. Remediation, again, needs to be done in a little bit of a different form than we're used to. You can't just ask a child to practice 10 more problems because they've gotten 4 wrong on the previous sheet. We need to come to the table with a different method, a different way to teach them, and all conceptually. And when I'm talking about conceptually, I'm talking about not the procedure. Don't follow these 5 steps and be successful. That has its time and place, but not when we're intervening. Use appropriate manipulatives and use alternate algorithms. So when you come to the seminar, you're going to get all kinds of different methods that you can help your students master that understanding. And then, of course, practice, purposeful, short practice. You're going to come away with lots of games and activities and a slew of resources where you can get free games and activities that support these skill sets. Just not game and game books out there, but these specific games are married and matched to a specific missing skill set. And then, of course, how can we apply it into the classroom? So I want to take an opportunity to share with you Stephen's work. And Stephen has been very successful. And I'm going to go ahead and answer Stephen's work with a specific error pattern in mind. And I want you to take a look at Stephen's work, and I want you to identify first, what is the task I'm asking Stephen to do? So look at these 6 problems. And either if you're with a classmate or one of your colleagues, just turn to them and say, this is what we're expecting Stephen to do. And I'm going to go ahead and answer these questions. And as I'm answering them, I want you to also turn to your neighbor or just write down, what is the error that Stephen is making? Okay? going to give you about a minute's time to, one, identify what the task we're asking of Stephen, and what is Stephen's error pattern. So you've identified that the task we're asking Stephen to add, and then my next question to you is, are we asking Stephen to do any regrouping, or is it just adding without regrouping? So you see that there's some regrouping. And then my question is, what numbers are we working with? We've got the ones, we've got the tens, and we're regrouping up into the hundreds, or maybe in some cases the thousands. Okay, so that's one of the first things we do as a task analysis. We look at a child's work, and first we ask ourselves, what is the task we're asking of a child? Because when we go to identify that task, we have to think of all those prior skills needed to be successful at this task. So we see that we're asking Stephen to add, and we're also asking Stephen to add with regrouping. And then the next thing I'm going to ask you to identify is, what is Stephen's error pattern? Usually with a child, when we need to intervene, there is an error pattern, which means to say they don't have something that they've done just randomly. It's something that they apply consistently, and you'll see it rear its head over and over and over again. These are just not careless mistakes. They're usually an error pattern. So we see that Stephen adds and just brings his work down. Adds and brings his work down. And if you've taught 4th, 5th, 6th, middle school, or high school, you have seen students who do this. And it's a hoot one, because usually they know their math facts very well. And in this case, I ask myself, does Stephen know his facts? Absolutely, he has his facts down. What is the error pattern? He's adding and bringing down. So one, he's not regrouping properly. It could be a place value issue. It could also be problems with his ability to see numbers as parts to whole. So we've diagnosed, we've taken a look at what is the task. The task is adding with regrouping. We have identified his error pattern, and then we take a look and think, what are the skills that are missing? So I want you to take a minute to write down the missing skills that you see Stephen is exhibiting. So one of the first things I will ask Stephen is to answer these questions with manipulatives and paper pencil. That tells us a lot. And just watching the child for maybe 5 minutes and asking, Stephen, would you do 3 of these problems and show me on the place value board, or just on your desk using manipulatives, answer the question using some type of manipulative. And usually we find that Stephen will get it right with manipulative, and yet he has a hiccup when it transfers from the manipulative to paper pencil work. And so we think, what is the gap there? It could be that they have not had enough practice with manipulative. It could be that they don't know how to transfer their understanding from manipulative to the abstract. It could be a huge place value issue. So this is Stephen, and we're not going to leave Stephen. We're going to just address a few more things about Stephen. So in the intervention run, we're going to do lots of student work. Again, this is what we've done. We've asked what is the task we're asking Stephen to do. Another thing that is very beneficial for you and I to do when we identify a child who has a gap is to write 4 or 5 problems with the task in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to write 4 regrouping addition problems. I'm going to stick with the tens and the hundreds. And I want you to answer them as Stephen has. I want you to climb into that beautiful mind of Stephen and see why he might be making that error, or what is it about that error, just so you have a better understanding of that. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to give you a minute. So you're becoming a master of Stephen's mind. And then we're going to perform a little bit of a skills trace. Identify the skills that are missing. Again, probably a place value issue here. It looks like Stephen has his facts mastered. Can he decompose and compose numbers? Can he take a look at 35, let's say? I'm just going to go and write 35 right on the right-hand side of my screen. Can he decompose that into 30 and 5? Can Stephen take a look at 42 and maybe decompose it as 30 and 12? The ability to manipulate numbers If he can't do that, that's another skill set I probably go, okay, we're going to spend a little bit of time with this because this has everything to do with place value, doesn't it? Okay. When working with manipulatives, can he accomplish a task? If he's successful with manipulatives, then it could be a misfire between manipulatives and the abstract. And then, again, what does he do on that place value turn? I want to watch him do the place value work. So after we do the task analysis and identify, okay, I've got his error pattern down. I've collected some information from him. I might do a little bit of a diagnostic interview as well. Stephen, tell me all about what you're doing, and probably on the place value board, show me what you're doing, asking him lots of questions, and then collecting that information. And then I'm going to go to remediation. And remediation is very important in my mindset. I'm going to reteach conceptually. I'm going to use manipulatives to reteach how to add. I'm going to use the appropriate manipulatives. And when I mean by that, I'm just going to show you a little chart here. Here's all kinds of manipulatives that can be used inside of the classroom. Now, depending on Stephen's age and depending on his academic maturity, I will choose manipulatives that are appropriate for that. So let's just take a look at these manipulatives for a minute. Groupable manipulatives. Place value, or excuse me, the little paper clips. They can be grouped as a group of 10, or they can be ungrouped as groups of 1. Bundles of straws and straws. They can be bundled up as a group of 10, or you can unbundle them. Pre-grouped trading materials such as beans and bean sticks. I can't take those beans off of that bean stick. They're glued down on. The base 10 block, you can feel the 10 notches, but I can't break them apart. Over here on the right, I see my little cubes. I can break those apart. Those are great groupable materials. And then also proportional materials. Again, beans, bean sticks. 10 beans have 1 rod of bean sticks. That's one group of 10. A base 10 block, 1 rod is 10. Each individual one is worth 1. Those are all proportional materials. And then non-proportional materials or models. Down in your left-hand corner, you see place value discs. They're all the same size, but they have different values. Those are non-proportional. Those are abstract. So when Stephen's working on the place value board, I'm going to be conscious of the materials to make sure that he is successful and understands it conceptually. So going back to our remediation. And then teach an alternate algorithm. So that's what I want to do right now, just share with you an alternate method that I would share with Stephen. And of course, I would use graph paper, so please keep that in mind. And I'm going to go to a slide. I think I've got it right here. And this slide is going to introduce us to, okay, right down below here, I'm going to go ahead and just write the name of this, and this is called partial sum, and it's also called vertical addition. And this method is perfect for a gentleman such as Stephen who wants exhibits to know his facts. 2, we would spend a little bit of time on the place value board before I would go to this alternate method. Remember, I would start with reteaching conceptually, which means I would have a place value board mapped out. They would be, Stephen would be using manipulatives to get the gist of exactly what it means to trade and regroup and why we do the operation the way we do. And then I'm going to introduce him to an alternate method. Now, Stephen had a difficult time with regrouping, so I'm going to go ahead and choose a few that require regrouping. So 65 plus 78. Now, when I watch Greg Tang do this, which I absolutely love, one, he has the children go ahead and do somewhat of a place value map on their problem. And imagine graph paper as well. So on the right, it's going to be my 1, and over on my left, that F, I'm going to go ahead and erase that for this sum. And I'm going to go ahead and put the 10s. I'm going to go ahead and erase that. Okay, so I might use a different colored marker as well, but you see that in the right hand, I have a 5 and an 8 in my 1 place. In my 10s, I have a 6 10s and I have 7 10s. And again, imagine graph paper is a great graphic organizer. This method also teaches commutative property. I love it. So let's go ahead and start the 1s first. I'll ask my student. 8 and 5. How many 1s is that? That is 13 1s. 13 1s. Now, if Stephen had a hard time with decomposing, we talk about that, but 13 1s is 1 10, 3 1s. I'm going to go ahead and start 1 10, 3 1s. I don't do anything up on top. I just go ahead and put it down below. Now I'm done with the 1s. I'm going to move to the 10s. 6 tens and 7 tens. How many tens is that? Now I might go ahead and do this as well. I'm going to go ahead and look at that 130 tens. That is 130 and 0. Or I might go 130 and 10. I'm going to go ahead and put that 13 tens, 0, 1. And then I just add my two parts together. 130 and 13 is 143. I'll give you a minute to wrap your mind around this. If you've not seen this method before, it's a great supporter of place value, which again, Stephen probably has some issues with. Now, Stephen, it's important to me that Stephen also knows how to work the traditional method. And I neglected to say that on the place value board, you have the traditional method written down, you have the manipulative, and you're doing both at the same time. So it marries the concrete and abstract, and it also explains why the operation works the way it does. Let me go ahead and clear this off, and let's do a few more. Again, I'm doing them right down below here. Let's do 86 plus 95, and 74 plus 89. And you go ahead and you can draw in if you want your place value, 1s and 10s. 74 plus 89, I'm not going to draw that in. Okay, so 86 plus 97, we start in the 1s place, 6 and 5. How many 1s is that? That is 11, and that is 1 10 and 1 1. And then over in the 10th place, 8 10s and 9 10s, that's 14 10s. 170, and I add that together and I get 181. For fun, for those to differentiate a little bit, I'm going to start in my 10th place. And I don't know how many of my middle school students said, Mrs. Stipek, you cannot do that. You have to start in the 1. Now, commutative property, we know well that the order doesn't matter. So let's start in the 10th place. 7 10s and 8 10s. Together, how many 10s is that? 15 10s. The value is 150. 9 and 4 is 13. 1 10 3 1. 163. Could you please write 5 problems down? I'll write 5 problems down too, and you're welcome to use mine, or you can do your own. And if you have any questions and you want to give a shout out to Michelle, I can go ahead and do a few of yours. So I'm going to go ahead and choose some problems that will be a challenge maybe for some of us. And I'll give you a minute to write as well, and please practice them. Oh, that is a good challenge. I'm not sure you're going to write 2. You write 5 and you practice. And again, I'm going to give you some time, so I'm going to be quiet for a minute and give you about 2 minutes time. Practice yours and practice this one if you want. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So that would be for Stephen. And then, of course, I would follow up with Stephen with a game. Partial sums is a great game. If you're not familiar with it, Google it online and you'll get the directions. And if you can't find it online, let me direct you where you can get it for free. If you go to livebinders.com, and you go to the top right-hand corner where it says search for a binder, and you type in my name. Anni Stipek. Again, you go to livebinders.com, in the top right-hand corner it will say search for a binder. You click on that, and you will find two rectangular boxes. You type in my name on the top, and it will direct you to my live binder. I have not been on it for a while, but it does have my games for free. So you can click Anni Stipek, click on my live binder, click on the Games tab. You will find this game under partial sounds, and I'm pretty sure it's numbers through 10. There might be numbers greater than 10, but it's a card game. It's an excellent way for students to practice partial sounds and adding by partial sounds, which exactly this is. And then I would expect Stephen to practice this method over and over and over again. Practice makes permanent. I'm not talking about memorizing it. I'm talking about practice it so you can apply it. And we have given Stephen a gift on the silver platter, not only to be successful with an operation, but also to practice place value and manipulate numbers, which is the number sense in a nutshell. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to Andrea's work. We have a little bit of time. Andrea has a work here, and I'm going to go ahead and ask you first to identify what is the task we're asking of Andrea. What are we asking Andrea to do here? Critique these problems. Okay, we identify that we are asking Andrea to subtract, and we are asking her to regroup. Okay. And we think about all the prior skills that are needed to be successful at this task. Her number understanding, place value, the ability to break numbers apart, the ability to recognize you cannot have a situation where you don't have enough ones available when you're trying to take 6 ones from 1 1. So that understanding as well, not only that number understanding, but that savviness of number sense. And we're asking now, I'm going to go ahead and answer Andrea's work, and I want you to identify what her error pattern is. What is her error pattern? Take a look at the work I've done. And identify some error patterns that Andrea is making. I see a few things going on here, which requires us to do a little bit more diagnosing, which means I'll probably have a conversation with Andrea more so than maybe I would have done with Stephen. So one might see that, she's getting these problems right that require no regrouping, which is fantastic. 2, it's evident she knows that. I see another problem here that she is getting correct. And then I see this 60 minus 14 is a different ball game than 31 minus 16 and 35 minus 28. So I see there might be a few things going on. But I do recognize that Andrea does not recognize you cannot take 6 ones from 1 1. So we have identified a few things. So her error pattern is she's not able to regroup accurately. She looks like she can regroup, or excuse me, she looks like she is successful with problems that do not require regrouping. So again, we want to ask, what is the task Andrea is expected to do? What is her error pattern? So I want you to write down 3 problems. Let's just stick to 3. If you want to write down 4, you can, that require regrouping, such as the ones we just did, and answer them as Andrea. Climb into that beautiful mind of her so we can truly understand what is the pattern that she has going on here. Okay, you get the sense that she's not recognizing you cannot take a certain amount of number away from ones and you not have them available. So what are the skills missing? It appears that she knows her facts.
Excuse me, Annie?
Yes.
Is there a way that you could adjust your microphone or your telephone a little bit? People are having a hard time hearing you. It's sounding very muffled.
Okay, can you hear me better there?
That's a little bit better, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you. Okay, so again, we're taking a look at Andrea's work. Forgive me for the muffled sound. Hopefully you can hear me a little bit better. And asking what the task is, of course, subtracting with regrouping. And then Andrea's having a difficult time recognizing she doesn't have enough ones available. So we're going to go ahead and identify, can she decompose and compose numbers? That is just, again, the silver lining here. And especially with this problem, we need to look at something such as 32. Can Andrea take a look at 32 as 30 and 2? Absolutely. Can Andrea also take a look at 32 as something such as 20 and 12? I want you to look at the differences on those two. When you look at 32 as 30 and 2, that's standards 10 and 1. When you look at 32 as 12 and 20, that is non-standards 10 and 1. And if you want to know a little bit more information about that, go ahead and Google it when we're done. Better yet, come to the intervention seminar and we'll dive into it quite a bit, because those are two essential skill sets Andrea must have under her belt to be successful with subtraction with regrouping. And again, I would bring up the manipulative. Andrea, show me on a place value board the problem 31 minus 16. And it might be very well that she can do it successfully. And there's a gap between the concrete and the abstract. And we'll practice, practice, practice. We'll do the algorithm next door to where she gets the understanding. I understand now that I need to regroup and I need to go ahead and look at 31 a little bit differently. If that's not the case and she's not successful on the place value board, then I go back even further, and I'm going to demonstrate that. So again, I'm going to reteach conceptually on the place value map, use a manipulative. I probably, in this case with Andrea, would use groupable materials, which means straws and bundles of, and the reckon math line. This is a perfect spot for the reckon math line. Start with simpler problems such as 12 minus 4, 12 minus 6, 12 minus 8. I'm just going to give you a snapshot of that. If you've not taught it this way before, it might be a little bit different, so you're in for a fun surprise. Now imagine two 10-frame cards and a reckon math line. Imagine the students have their math and rec line. I'm just going to go ahead and demonstrate this. Here's my two little, and I'm going to demonstrate 12 on the math and rec line. There's my 10, and then down below I have my 2 ones. Do you see that I've went ahead and identified my 12 as 10 and 2? Now keep in mind, I want to take 4 away from 12. And on the math and rec line, you can imagine, you ask your students, where are your ones available? Go ahead and write this problem down. Where are your ones available in order to take your 4 away? So we've got 12, and we go 10 and 2. I can take the 4 from the 2 down here and the 2 up here, but I can also take 4 away from the 10. If I take 4 away from the 10, what do I have left? I have 6, and 2 together equals 8. Now, if you've never seen that before, it is a little bit different, but I tell you, this is the layer that our students might have missed when they're dealing with larger problems like 31 minus 16. I'm going to do this again. I'm going to erase this. I'm going to draw my little math reckon line again because I just love this tool, especially for this. And imagine I've got 2 rows, and in each row, I'm going to represent 12 minus 6 here now. So give me a minute to draw that out. Here's my 10, 11, 12. So what I've done is I've taken my 12 and decomposed it into 10 and 2. Do you see that? Now I want to take 6 away. I'm going to go ahead and write my problem down here, 12 minus 6. And what did I do with my 12? 10 and 2. Where do you see the ones available? I see the ones available in my 10. I'm going to go ahead and take 10 minus 6. I get 4, and I bring those parts together, and I get 4 and 2 equals 6. This is not the only way. Please know there are other effective methods that I found with intervention students, especially. This is a ticket. And then we follow it up with a game and an activity. And they've got this mastered, and they practice it, and they practice it. And then when we subtract problems like this, it is not so much as a difficult task because they've got all of these other skills underneath their belt. I see that our time has dwindled down, so I want to just make sure that I accomplished. So we took a look at 2 different students' work just to give you a snapshot of what we're going to do in the intervention training. We've used some tools to be successful to reteach conceptually. Place value math is just straight across the board one of the most beautiful methods that you can help your students to reteach. And if you're not familiar with the place value map, you can Google it. There's a lesson online at sve.com. You can watch, I think it's Shar doing one lesson on the place value map. Also, I wanted to introduce you to this Rec and Rec math line that is going to be showcased. You will get one of these, and we'll use it all day long. And then I wanted to show you just a few methods with our earlier gentleman who was struggling with adding using vertical addition, and then here, starting when they're struggling with subtraction, such as problem 31 minus 16, where to take them back to build up those skills for them to be successful. So now you have an opportunity to ask any questions if you'd like, and Michelle will take it back and we'll wrap things up, and I'll listen for those questions. I hope you have a lovely day, and I hope to see many of you at the intervention seminar run. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Annie. We hope everyone enjoyed today's presentation. We're going to take just a minute or two to let you submit any last-minute questions via the window on the right-hand side of your screen. In the meantime, I'd like to mention a few things. As a special thank you for attending today's webinar, we'd like to offer you a 10% discount if you register for any seminar or conference by October 16th, 2014, and mention VIP code W091614. In fact, you may be particularly interested in joining Annie at one of SDE's upcoming full-day math intervention seminars or multi-day Singapore math conferences being held this November through May. Please keep in mind that you can bring Annie on-site to your school or district for customized training or embedded coaching, all to meet your unique needs. For more information on training or to register for any SDE event, call us at 877-388-2054. Of course, we'd also like to invite you to follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest under the username SDE4Educators. Finally, live attendees will receive a follow-up email within 48 hours that will include a link to the printable certificate of participation for this webinar, as well as a link to the archive recording. So let's go ahead and get started with a few questions that have come in. Let's see. Annie, do you have more resources for games?
Okay. Yes, I do. So let me go ahead. I'm going to write these down. So let me get to a slide. Hang on just a second. So one is Math Play. Math Play is a brand new book out by Eliza Forte Thomas. And you can get Math Play at Crystal Springs, And I highly suggest Math Play for a few reasons. One, it does support the skill sets that we often see missing in our students. Purposeful practice games. And two, for the most part, you need a set of die and cards, and you've got a great slew of games. So Math Play is one. And Crystal Springs books, I'm just going to put Crystal Springs book, CSB, and that's by Eliza Forte Thomas. Another resource is called Family Math. Family Math comes in numerous levels. Amazon is the place to get Family Math. It's a consortium from Berkeley, California, out of Cal Berkeley. Another source is Everyday Mathematics, and these are free if you just Google Everyday Math Games. And Everyday Math Games are excellent for building up a specific skill set. They're also excellent for justification, explaining, so on and so forth, Everyday Math. Another source you can go to, I'm not going to tell you one specific book because all the books I've ever gotten there I have been very happy with. Boxcars and One-Eyed Jack. They're out of Canada. And I'm a fan of using a deck of cards and dice And this is what the book supports. You have a deck of cards and you have some dice and you've got a slew of games. Again, I look for games that are purposeful, that support skill sets that I'm looking are missing and are easy to apply. So those are some ideas for you. Any other questions?
Okay, let's see. Where can they find out more about the Reckon Math?
Okay, let me put that slide back up there because you can go to Math Line. You see on the very top, you see Math Line, and then on the bottom, you see the phone number and then howbright.com. And Dale, I'm going to ask for Dale. And the story about MathLine just is phenomenal because this is what makes it so incredible. Dale is the son of the father who created Rec MathLine, and it first started just as the MathLine. And they had foster students, foster children come through their homes, and one of them was struggling, and the father built this tool to help the child to succeed. And if I have the story right, and I think Dale is with us, or he was, you can call in and chat with Dale and chat with him a little bit about the story. But what an easy tool. I love the Rec, but this just brings it a step further with the numbers on the back when we get to identifying number recognition and such.
Okay, and I think that we are just about out of time. So any other questions, we will go ahead and be posting after the webinar, which the link to the answers will be included in the thank you email that people will receive after the webinar. So thank you to Annie, and thank you everyone for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed our presentation. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.